Our topic in today's short insight is the concept of loss. What life takes away from us and learning through loss. Now, we all know what loss is, and we've experienced it in so many different forms during our lives. So let us look at three basic linguistic definitions of loss from the public literature and see what they say from different contexts. The first one is loss is the fact or process of losing something or someone. It is a state of being deprived of or no longer having something that one once possessed. So this is the literal definition of loss, not having what you once had. Next, it says loss is the state of being deprived or ceasing to possess a valued person, object, quality, or attribute, often resulting in feelings of grief. So here loss is being defined as a state of mind, a state of being. And this is more of an emotional or psychological definition. And finally, loss is a confrontation with impermanence. It is the moment when life demands that we find meaning beyond what has been taken away. Nice definition. Loss is a confrontation with impermanence. It is the moment when life demands that we find meaning beyond what has been taken away. So this is more of a spiritual definition. Now, I think the above three examples show us how diverse the word loss can be, depending on the context we apply it to. Now let us explore a few different types of loss to build our initial understanding of loss before we dig into the why part and what part. So here's a list of some common types of loss we encounter. There's financial and material loss of belongings. There's reputational loss, loss of recognition of others, being discarded, loss of health and youth, loss of freedom, loss of friendships and love, loss of a loved one through death, and more. And you can keep adding to this list. So, my dear friends, loss spares no one. Every human, regardless of wealth, age, faith, or circumstance, will face it repeatedly in different forms. Have you ever wondered why every one of us at some point must lose? We must lose something or someone, no matter how much we try to hold on. Ever wondered about that? Why? The answer to this question can be multifold. And today we will try to explore loss from a handful of angles, as it is a subject of incredibly wide scope. We could do 10 webinars on this, but I've carefully handpicked just a few to discuss for today. Now, many of us have been raised to believe that loss is a form of punishment. If we do bad things happen to us. And we are shown a very filtered definition of karma in this regard. I know that in my childhood this concept was drilled into my head as a deterrent, because maybe I was a bit of a rebel in the view of whoever was teaching me, but as a deterrent and as something I always had to fear. So that's how I grew up. I grew up in an era where ethics, values, and faith were largely taught through fear. Until one day, in 1995, when writing the chapter on the 10 stages of the soul in my first book, Reflections from the Origin, I was blessed with a beautiful realization that showed me a totally different and vast dimension of why things happen the way they do, what life is, who our Creator is, who are we, what is our connection to each other. It was a beautiful realization. So today, I will share some of that understanding in the context of loss and what loss brings. To start with, let us put fear aside. We have nothing to fear and we have everything to learn. Always remember, we have nothing to fear and we have everything to learn. Because we are in this world to learn and gain experience and derive knowledge and light through our experiences by using the power of our intellect. Now, I've shared the cycle of life with you from Parables from the Origin, my second book, and I've shared it with you in many webinars, but let us focus on two definitions from my books and then keep them in our minds as we discuss loss. They are good background understanding. The first is the origin is light. Light brings life. Life brings experience. Experience brings knowledge. And knowledge is light. That's the full circle. And this was one of the realizations I was blessed with on that day in 1995. A realization that in simple terms says that we all come from one source, one origin, and each of us has our roots in this source, which is light. Pure, eternal, universal light. We all have our roots in this source. And we draw life from this light. Each one of us. We have life that comes from this light, which is of a common origin to all of us. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, you will see your physical form that is alive in inverted commas. That's what you will see. If there were no life present, you would not even be standing before that mirror. Now, since we all emerge from one origin, we are in fact all one. The only thing that separates us is our physical form. And it was a beautiful realization that came to me, and I thought, wow, okay, so this is how this world works. This is how we are all so deeply interconnected. The next thing is life brings experience. So here we are in this world to learn and experience. And life teaches us everything through contrasts, good and bad, light and dark, love and hate, etc., etc. Now please revisit the video on the webinar entitled Unlocking the Secret of Freedom. We had it recently a couple of months ago, and it goes into depth on how life teaches us everything in this world through contrasts. And loss and gain are two such contrasts. So do watch this video again, and today's webinar will take on a deeper meaning. So life brings experience, and next, experience brings knowledge. So those of us who apply our power of learning and reason through our intellect discover true meanings of our experiences, which lead us to knowledge, and knowledge is light. So we are here to gain knowledge and light in this short and challenging journey on earth. So this was the first key important realization. Okay. And this realization showed me the purpose of life. Simple, logical, and easy to intellectualize. Connected to this realization was another fundamental key, which stems from what I said earlier, which is, since we all emerge from one origin, we are all one. And the only thing that separates us from each other is our physical form. From this came to me the statement of universal truth, which says, I am you, you are me, and together we are everything. I am you, you are me, and together we are everything. This is the basis of all the commandments of ethics our scriptures have taught. If I love myself, I love you too. If I hurt you, I hurt myself. And so all our ethics stem from there. So now these two key messages provide a very broad dimension of life, far more than the fear-based messaging on karma that I grew up with. And we have 4 videos on karma on our YouTube channel that provide a very loving and nurturing understanding of the true role of karma, well beyond the fear concept. Do visit these videos too. I mean, you will find enlightening messages with profound lessons in them. We had these webinars, I think, a few years ago. So, my dear friends, let us start by addressing the question, is loss a form of punishment? And does every loss we encounter be a result of how bad we have been? The simple answer is no. Loss comes to us all with very good reasons, far beyond punishment. Before we go further, let us ask ourselves a very fundamental question, a logical question with respect to material possessions. If I came into this world with nothing, and I leave this world with nothing, what do I have that is mine to lose? The answer is nothing. So according to this logic, we all have nothing to lose. It's a fact of life if we apply it to the time horizon of birth and death, before and after. None of us has anything that truly belongs to us here in this world. So we have nothing to lose. So loss can be and should be viewed in the context of its timeline. A very important angle to consider when reflecting on our losses. Each loss has its timeline. And when you take the timeline of an entire life on this earth, our loss is always zero, because we came with nothing and we leave with nothing. Now let us narrow this timeline down a bit more, and now loss takes on a different dimension. We came in this world with nothing. Then we began to experience life, and we began to become attached to material possessions and feelings and experiences. We learned the art of attachment. And that art of attachment leads us to the root of the meaning and experience of loss. I have gained material resources and belongings in my life. I am attached to them now, and I am absolutely 100% sure they belong to me, because I don't remember the fact that I came with no belongings. I'm not here to acquire belongings. That's not the reason I'm here. I'm here to use these belongings to build upon and help facilitate my journey of experience in this world. But I have forgotten this point along my journey, alongside just as I've forgotten many other facts that I knew at birth. So I become attached to what I call my belongings. I become attached to my home, my wealth, and all the things I enjoy. I become attached to the people I love, and with people I enjoy being with, even if I don't love them deeply. My attachments lead me to my dependence on my belongings and my loved ones and more. Dependence. And my dear friends, we all know that dependence comes with its own weaknesses in our lives, along with fear. But this is all very natural for each one of us. And this is how we all set up the groundwork for experiencing loss. I've written about a man, let us call him George, who is sailing in a ship in the olden times and then has the shipwreck, and he drifts off and ends up on an island. It's a miracle that he survives in the first place. And then, over time, he's trying to find a way out of this island because he doesn't know that it's actually a peninsula connected to the mainland. But one day, as he's walking along, he finds this artery, this peninsula. And then he goes through an old riverbed as he is walking. He's quite tired, fatigued, afraid. He thinks he will never see another human being again. And in this riverbed, he sees large crystals the size of his fist, pure white, shining brilliantly. And he looks at this crystal and thinks, wow, I've never seen anything like this before. So he has a little bag. He puts as many of these crystals in his bag as he could. And he keeps going. And he keeps going because he's struggling to find his way back to civilization. And as he walks, he tires. Day after day, he gets more and more tired. And as he tires, he lightens his load. So he keeps dropping crystal after crystal until he's finally left with only one crystal. But he doesn't know what they are. Finally, he makes it to civilization and then settles down. And then one day he remembers this crystal and he thinks, oh, let me go and find out, what this is worth, if anyone will buy it of me, because I need the money. So he goes to one person who trades in these things, in novel things and jewels, etc. And the guy looked at it and goes, this is very interesting. It's a strange, large piece. I tell you what, I'll give you 1 dinar for it. Now, in those days, a dinar was equal to 1 gold coin. And this guy stops and thinks, no, maybe it's worth more. So he takes it and he says, no, I don't want to sell it. And the guy goes, wait, how about I give you 3 dinars? He thinks this guy went from 1 to 3 so quickly. So maybe it's worth more. So he said, no, I think I'm going to keep it. The guy goes, 10 dinars. He says no, and he leaves. And then he goes to another place, and the guy looks at it and he says to him, I've offered 10 dinars for it, but I think this is worth a lot more. This guy was smart. And that way, he began to get more bids on his crystal rock until it reached 10,000 dinars. In those days, you couldn't spend 10,000 dinars if you wanted to. And so, finally, he sells this crystal for 10,000 dinars. But then he says, I'm going to go back and find some more. So he goes back, but he realizes he doesn't remember where it is. So he's absolutely heartbroken. And he's really, really upset because he can't find any more crystals that he could sell for 10,000 dinars. What was the message here in this story? He picked up something so valuable, something that could change his well-being for the rest of his life. But instead of being grateful for it, he lamented the fact that he had left behind all those hundreds of crystals which now he could not find. And even though he had spent such little time with those crystals, it was just in passing, he was now attached to them. And he kicked himself over their loss for the rest of his life. Why didn't I carry 5 of them? Why did I tire? He kept beating up on himself. That is how the art of attachment worked for him. It fueled greed. And in the midst of the largest gain of his life, which was the fact that he was still alive despite the shipwreck, he had found a stone that gave him all the resources he would ever need. But here he was, suffering loss of what was never his. A story to reflect upon when evaluating loss. Was it ever ours? So, my dear friends, if any of our belongings are lost, the natural thing is that we feel the hurt of loss. And each one of us processes this pain differently. Some of us beat ourselves up. Some of us seek revenge if someone took it away from us. Some take greater risks like gamblers to regain what was lost and risk losing more in pursuit of that, etc., etc. A couple of weeks back, when I was in the supermarket in Spain, I didn't know, but I dropped a 50 euro note from my pocket when pulling out my wallet at the cashier's to get my credit card. When I got home, I realized that the 50 euro note was missing. And I wasn't very happy about it because I find myself becoming more and more clumsy as I get older. So that was the part that was bothering me. Anyway, it was gone and I stopped thinking about it until today, when I was preparing for this class. And as I was preparing, and all these thoughts were flowing through me, I caught a glimpse of a young woman with her baby who was in the queue behind me at the supermarket cash register. And I had noticed her trolley, and it dawned on me that she had only bought bare necessities and needed a few more essentials for her baby that probably she could not afford. So you know how you see something, it registers, but then it doesn't until the picture is shown to you? And that's where I believe my 50 euro bill ended up. Like a gift of heaven, from heaven for her. And until I realize this, I have perceived the loss of 50 euros as my loss through clumsiness. Remember, I am you, you are me, and together we are everything. That is the power of our interconnectivity in this world. And when I looked at this loss, I smiled, and I was grateful it happened. That young mother needed it far more than I did. So think of this interconnectivity when you reflect on your losses. Your loss could be a lifesaver for someone else. So consider that too while you're processing the pain. Next, in this world, many of us have been blessed with deeply loving relationships. And when they break, we suffer life-altering loss. Some people never recover from this loss. The loss of love can be devastating. In addition, even worse can be the loss of a loved one through death. The grief is immense. It is probably the hardest experience any of us can ever face. We experienced the loss of my 35-year-old nephew, who was more a son than a nephew, in January this year. Came out of the blues. Nothing about this experience made any sense at the time. Why would a 35-year-old's life be cut short this way? But after a lot of deep reflection, I realized a broader picture to what had happened, making it no less painful, I must add. Khalil Gibran, in his book, I believe it's called The Prophet, or one of his sayings, and I'll paraphrase it, says, "Your children do not belong to you. You are just their custodians for a short period of time." Now remember, as I said earlier, look at the context of loss from its timeline. When you are analyzing your losses and trying to get meaning from them, look at it from timeline as well. And when I did that, with a longer timeline, with the case of our nephew, I realized a number of things. What were they? Number one, he came to be a part of us for a short period of time. And we were blessed with his love and presence for 35 years. But then, his purpose in this world was done. He had come to gain the knowledge and light he had come to seek and to give the world what he had come to give. And when this learning was complete, he had to move on. Just like the rest of us have come, and we will all move on. And I believe that in another world or time or existence, there was a new blessing of life awaited. And that's where our loved one had transformed to live, experience, and write a new chapter. To give to that chapter like he had given to us, and to receive from that chapter like he had received from us. That was his natural progression, a progression that left us with a deep void. But in the end, the reality of life is that nothing is permanent, no matter how hard we try to hold on. Healing begins when we stop resisting loss and start listening to it. So I have dealt with my grief through prayer and faith, and wishing for him all the very best the universe could ever grace him with, offering gratitude for the gift of his life, and also seeking the grace of healing upon those he has left behind. So loss of a loved one often needs to be considered over a much wider timeline for it even to begin to make any sense. The short timeline is clear. It is an unfathomable tragedy. But the longer timeline suggests it is okay. It is a natural progression within the universes. There's a very good video entitled Death and Grief on our YouTube channel where I've described death through a vision I experienced of my own death. It offers perspectives that help put one's griefs in a deeply healing space. So it offers more profound understanding of what one has lost. So please do view it. It's quite enlightening. So my dear friends, these are some of the phases of loss we encounter in our lives. And if we put all our emotions aside, we will find that they are rooted in our attachments and dependencies, amongst other things. And while we all know at the back of our minds that everything in this world is temporary and nothing lasts forever, we still learn to depend on what is certainly not going to last, be it people, be it material possessions. We know this, but somehow we end up finding ourselves dependent. It happens to all of us, without exception. This is why many scriptures say, depend on no one except your Creator. A very powerful statement of faith, but extremely difficult to live by, unless one is able to build a powerful grounding in one's faith. Remember, the origin is light, and light brings life. So what better place to rest our dependencies than the origin, than our Creator? And that's what the scriptures and spiritual schools of thought teach us. But it takes time, it takes experience, reflection, and wisdom to internalize this very fundamental, difficult lesson. Even when we experience something like reputational loss, for example, what does that really mean? We were raised to believe that if you do your best and you do the right thing, you will earn a good reputation, and that this reputation must always be protected at all costs. Again, what is reputation, we should ask? Reputation, in a simple sense, is how others perceive us. And this is something very, very fragile, my dear friends. Because if we live by what others think of us, and when things turn adverse, we feel immense loss and embarrassment. And at that point, we should stop and ask ourselves the question, why? I believe it is because we have learned the art of becoming attached to the validation that comes from what others think of us and say about us. This validation feeds the ego and more. So when it gets damaged, we feel destroyed by the loss. So my dear friends, unwisely clinging to reputation that takes away our freedom and leaves us very hurt when things go wrong is not very smart. Now, I'm not saying that having a good reputation is not important. It is absolutely essential. But what I am saying is define and understand the basis of what reputation means to you. I.e., what should your reputation be based on? Number one, always start with looking at your reputation from within first. When you look at the mirror, do you see a reputable person that says and does what he says? Does he do his best to do the right thing? Is he ethical in his thoughts and actions? Remember, yourself knows everything about you. So let yourself be the judge of your reputation. To me, if you qualify your reputation through yourself, which sees through all lies and deceit and all your intentions, if you pass this test, that is your true reputation that you must aspire to and you must uphold and protect. Not what everybody thinks. That is the reputation that you can control, correct, and improve, because it lies within your power to do so. You have to always be at peace with who you are and what you are, and what your true core reputation should be from within. If we don't build this peace, we will be no different to actors in a circus for the rest of our lives. So, my dear friends, reputation should not be founded on what others think. It should be founded on your own inner truth and assessment. When I said reputation in the eyes of others is very fragile, look at how lies are so easy to spread today. Someone can pay a media consultant, a kinder word than mercenary, to destroy your reputation in a day through carefully weaved lies. And they've got media and everything available today to instantly transform you from a good person to a bad person, reputation-wise. Today someone could use my video via AI and insert absolutely the opposite of what I stand for, and the world will believe it. This is how fragile reputation is. I mean, look at what democracy has become in our world today. It is so easy to manipulate democracy with money and media. One can make crooks and thieves smell like roses. It is that easy. This begs the question, is that really our reputation? Is that really the reputation we should be basing our own gauge on? And this concept is not just valid today. It goes back to historical times. Let us go back to the ever popular practice of gossip. Gossip is something people have loved for a long time, since time immemorial. Think of how much pain and suffering gossip has caused to most of us and people that we know. And gossip is usually based on lies or misperceptions or misunderstandings. It spreads like fire and damages reputations, and the poor victim cannot even defend himself or herself. So this type of reputation, based on the opinions of others, is fragile, very fragile. Definitely not one we want to get attached to. So before we succumb to the pains of reputational damage or loss, let us switch course and learn to live with our own robust definition of what our reputation is and should be, and then stand by it. If we lose that reputation, then it is time to ask soul-searching questions and change our ways, because reputation loss will always come in small and large measures to teach us the errors of our ways. Such loss is not something to fear. It is something to embrace as a beacon of growth. Now, I'd like to conclude today's insight by very briefly touching on some spiritual insights on loss, what its purpose is, and from a spiritual vantage point. Very briefly, firstly, loss is not life's cruelty. It is life's mirror. It shows us who we are beyond what we have. And this adds further context to my comments on reputation, for example, who we are. Secondly, every loss mirrors the ultimate truth of impermanence. This is reflected in many scriptures offering spiritual wisdom. For example, the Quran says, "Every soul shall taste death," which is a reminder to us all of our transience in this world. It is a very short passage through eternity. The Bible says, "Do not store up treasures on earth, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." This offers us a very long timeline when reflecting on loss and emphasizing the importance of detachment from all that is of a material nature. Then, thirdly, when we realize attachment, we awaken to that which cannot be lost, i.e., the spirit, love, and consciousness. These are our fundamental pillars of existence that awaken when we let go of our attachment. A seeker asks his teacher, "How can I be free from pain?" The teacher replies, "Love deeply, but hold lightly." Next, the pains of loss leave us with wounds. And Rumi says very beautifully, "The wound is where the light enters you." We don't heal by forgetting what was lost. We heal by finding meaning in what remains. Next, Loss strips away the illusions that we often define ourselves by, such as what we own, our position in life, what we control, or the things or people we are connected with, and more. Loss invites humility and truth, showing us what truly endures. And finally, in spiritual language, loss removes what is temporary so that the eternal can be seen. So this is the brief insight that I wish to share with you today. And there's so much for us to contemplate further on this subject, and I hope that this insight has planted some seeds that we can nurture going forward.